Thank you for joining me once again on the podcast. In this business of 1,000 details, in these challenging times, we have to keep our eye and attention on the details and the bottom line. This week, I speak with Rich Clark, the co-founder and partner in C&S Restaurant Group in Atlanta, one of the most competitive restaurant cities, and what this business is doing to stay ahead of the competition. We talk about what's made the biggest difference in their restaurant's success. We, of course, talk about how they're handling inflation and high labor costs, and building a team and leadership, loyalty and marketing, and influencers, everything that moves the needle for their business. You're not going to want to miss it, so stay tuned. While we're speaking about rising costs and shrinking margins, there is a way to overcome these things. There is a way to boost your bottom line and to be really aware of the things you can do to move the needle. I have a course called the Restaurant Profit Maximizer. It's everything I've learned in 30 years about having double the net profit of the average full-serve restaurant with my concepts. It's things that you can immediately execute and have the same successes. So check that out at restaurantrockstars.com/profit maximizer. Now, on with the episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Beaudoin.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. So glad you're with us, and welcome to the show, Rich. Glad you're here as well.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining me on the show. Before we get into your restaurant story, I had a chance to look at your website, and it was very impressive from a guest perspective, meaning it gives you the idea of the experience. It's elevated, it's upscale, the food looks extremely fresh, and the spaces are really attractive and beautiful. So we're going to talk all about your concepts in a moment, but with that said, well done website.
Thank you.
Please take us back. Everyone has their own hospitality story, where it all began. Tell us where yours begins.
In high school, my dad had a rule that wasn't playing a sport. You had to have a job. When I was a sophomore, I started busting tables at a Mexican restaurant and didn't really fall in love with it there, but I liked it. I liked the high pace. I liked the people. I liked just really everything about it. I liked the tips. I liked all of it. I liked the back of the house. I actually wound up, I was like, hey, I want to wash dishes, because it was hard. There's this dishwasher named Mike that I wanted to be better than, and all this and whatever. But when I graduated high school and I went to college, I started waiting tables, and I liked that. I liked the money, and I was pretty good at it. My first job was at the Olive Garden, and I went to work at Steak and Ale at another steakhouse. But in '88, I went to work for the Ritz-Carlton, and I guess I was a sophomore at that point. And that when I was like, all right, man, this is, because no one really wanted to be in the restaurant business in the '80s like they do now as much. Because I was like, I wanted to be an accountant and I wanted to be a business. I kept marketing. I don't know. I can't remember how many times to change my major, but I was like, oh, this is what I like. I like being in this environment. I like my general manager. I like the food and beverage executives. I like these guys they're all running around in $2,000 suits or whatever it was, driving BMWs. The only thing they were doing was working a lot. And I'm like, that's no problem for me. I said, this is what I want to do. And I really wanted to work at the Ritz-Carlton and be a manager there. But I had long hair and I was a little wild when I was 21, 22. I don't think I was quite management material. So I left and went to work with Gunter Seeger at a bistro. He's a Michelin star chef, and he asked if I wanted to go and be the captain for his restaurant. And I just was maitre d' and then manager. And I left, and then I went to work for the people. There's a restaurant called Brasserie Lacoste, which is a sister restaurant of Le Bernardin. And so I got to work with the Mademoiselle Lacoste Monday through Thursday, which was really tough. But I did that for 3 years, and I just kept adding to my resume. And I made sure that wherever I went, I wanted to accomplish what I wanted to learn. Specifically, when I went to work for Miss Lacoste and those guys, I knew it was going to be hard. Back then, there weren't Michelin stars in the States. And I wanted to see what it would be like to work for someone like this. And I found out rather quickly what it was like. And I didn't think I was going to make it, but I did. And I got really good at it. And so then I went to work for another restaurant in Buckhead, Atlanta, which is high end. and it was an upscale. It's called Blue Ridge Grill. It's a sister restaurant of Bones. And so I learned a whole nother high-end steak, non-French, non-European, which was eye-opening for me. And I was like, what do you mean they're going to pay this money for a steak and baked potato? There's no sauce on it. There's no foie gras, whatever, but it was really meat. And then I left and I was the general manager of the Atlanta Fish Market in the 90s. And that I really enjoyed. And once again, I wanted to accomplish what I wanted. When I would change jobs, it was always about what I wanted to put on my resume and what I wanted to learn, because I'm like, one day I'm going to open my own restaurant. And so when I went to work for the fish market, it was a volume place, high quality volume. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. And the owner, Pedro Kirtasis, super nice guy, I worked for him for 6 years. He was surprised that that's what I chose, was that was my background, because he gave me a number of his restaurants. I think he had 14 or something crazy like that back then. And I said, yeah, this is what I want to do. And he says, why? And I said, this is it's the second busiest restaurant in your company, and I want to make it the first. I want to make it the busiest. And so we did. And so we just went out there and really went at the numbers, and it gave me a chance to really work with numbers and volume. And so that's what I did for a long time. And then I had the opportunity to open up a restaurant up in the suburbs of a seafood place, of course. And so I went and hired my partner, John Schwank. And he was the chef at Brasserie when I was there.
Oh.
So we were homies from way back when. So we were like, hey, this is what we want to do. So we worked for this guy for a while, and then things run their course. So we'll just say that. And anger had us open our first place. So we went and opened our first place. It was like, hey, it was just how things get. And we're like, man, let's do our own thing. We'll figure it out. And we started looking at 2006, into 2006. And it took us a while. I had to go to, 20 something banks, got an SBA loan by the grace of God, an SBA loan. And it wasn't anything like it said on the website about not being fully guaranteed and 5% down. All of that was untrue, but we got it done. Second mortgages, 401k. I had to ask my father to put up some collateral. My dad's a super nice guy, paid his first house off when he was 38, but dad's an airline mechanic. So it's not like we're all made up out of money here. And so we opened in June of 2007 and everything was great. And then the recession happened, and my partner and I, we did the old adage. We got to where we wanted to be and took our eye off the ball a little bit. And then the recession certainly made us hunker down, and we just learned a lot. And I don't know, just went broke. We never, not any bankruptcy, not anything like that, but it wasn't a lot of fun filling up, putting liquor bottles up on the back bar just so you could empty ones, fill with iced tea. So it looks like you've got some inventory and worried about payroll week to week. So whenever anything's bad now, I'm like, hey man, when the pandemic happened, we were all I was like, oh man, not again. I was like, not again. I've worked so hard. And I was going to get some pizza, and I was just bummed out. I was in my almost in my jammies, my sweatpants. There was this guy who's in the business also. He's a hospitality. So he goes, oh man. And I had one of my Hugo's, my other restaurants, hat on. He says, you got to shut down the Bloody Mary bar. I said, I have to. I said, I closed yesterday, man. I know what's coming. And I'm like, I'm going to go home and call American Express. If they haven't cut me off already, because that's what they did in the recession. And he says, nah, they're bailing out. And I said, what? And so I watched those news conferences every day with Trump and Mnuchin. And then we got our bailout, and I was like, oh, we're going to be okay. I said, we're going to be okay.
Wow. But we have a similar story. I had an SBA loan from my very first restaurant, and I must have pledged 3 different houses and signed personal guarantees. And one restaurant led to 3, led to more. And I went down that road. And sure, you go through those challenges, and somehow you make it to the other side. And then I sold all those and had the brilliant idea of buying another restaurant just before the pandemic, and went through everything you're talking about. And you think everything is over, and then the government comes through with bailout money. And I hate the word pivot. You change a zillion times, and somehow you make it through. And wow. Right. Let me ask you a question. Your story is very inspired. Ritz-Carlton, of course. Some of the restaurants you talked about are illustrious properties, obviously, and expectations are high. Now, you mentioned that you had a work ethic and you came into the place with the right approach and attitude. And whatever it takes attitude means you polish the silverware, you peel the potatoes, you do whatever they ask you
Right.
to do, and you try to stand out from your peers and excel. And that's how you rise up. And then connections and all those things happen to
All
you.
those things matter.
Were there any special people, mentors in your life that really took you under their wing and showed you the ropes and trained you in a certain way? Or did you just baptism by fire? I dove in,
Few
I
of
learned
them.
everything I could.
Few of them. The first one I could really remember is a gentleman named Danielle Sine at the Ritz-Carlton, and I begged and begged for this job, and I got the job at the luncheon buffet,
Okay.
which it was the Ritz-Carlton. Now, like, he wanted to work at night in dining room, but Danielle really took me under his wing. I used to drive him nuts too. I was 21 years old, and I lived like right in the bars in Atlanta, and I was a good employee, but he told me once, you're like my daughter who was 21, went to Georgia. You're driving me nuts, man. He told me, you've got eyes like I haven't seen in a long time. You work like a European. You're going to blow it. And I was like, Danielle, I'll never give you a problem again, man. I did it. But he really showed me, coming from casual steakhouse thing and staking out and going to work for a company like the Ritz-Carlton. I was behind because like I said, I was 21 and I was in the room with 40-year-old guys and European guys. And I was over my head. I don't know, but I'm like, I'm going to set this table up and I'm going to set it up better than you and faster than you. And I'm going to sell more foie gras appetizers, or I'm going to sell whatever. And I'm going to learn it. And I used to go in and Danielle would take me, he would show me how to do everything. And I would go in and my friends were cooks. So I would go in early, like however early, and just talk to them, watch what they were doing. And then afterwards, you're certainly going to go out and hang out and then just talk to those guys and just really talk food all the time. He was a mentor. Fabrice Verger and Maggie Lacoste. Maggie, not so much other than just giving me the 1-2, but my GM at Brasserie Lacoste, Fabrice, he has his own restaurant. He was he was a captain at Bernardin for however many years. I really enjoyed working with him a lot. We could work a room and it was just really super fun. And then Pano at Buckhead Life was very special. But the CFO at Buckhead Life, Christo Macready's, because I've always liked numbers. I've always liked them. And they were easy to me. My dad's black and white. Like I said, he was an airline mechanic, so everything had to be perfect. The numbers are either they're right or they're wrong. There is no in between.
Precision.
Yeah, exactly. So corporate office was right there where I worked. And he was none of these people were nice to me, mind you. They were nice, but it wasn't like warm and fuzzy. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of push. But he really took me under his wing and showed me numbers and pressed me and gave me bonuses. And now he's a mentor. He's also a friend. My CPA now, his name's Dwight Samuels, and he's about to open his second restaurant. He's an accountant for, I don't know how many, he specializes in restaurant accounting. And I've known him since 94. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dwight during the recession and everything. And for him being very poignant with me. Those are the people, those guys were instrumental and my father for sure. And my mother,
Yes.
More than anything, just watching them. Like I said, they paid their house up when they were 40, just working hard and just you have a plan and sticking to it and not making a whole bunch of hoopla about whatever it is that you want to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but
No, that's great. We talked about some past challenges that you've overcome. What are some of the current challenges you're facing now, and how are you overcoming those?
the labor market's changed, but I don't ever remember the labor market being an easy thing. It's changed a little bit. It's a little tougher to get. Yeah. I don't even know if that's really the days of people working, God, long hours and everything, like the battle days, those things have long since passed. But that's a little tough. Getting people to show up for interviews is insane. I don't know if your other guests ever talk about that, but you could have 10 interviews on Indeed and you're lucky to get half of them. They just won't show up. I don't know what that's about, but
We had that
and-
issue with that restaurant I owned during the pandemic, right?
yeah,
And
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's every other person. You know what I think it was? I think people just wanted to stay on unemployment and they had to report that they were looking
It's
for
still
jobs.
going, man.
So
It's still going.
they'd set up appointments and interviews and then they just wouldn't show up, but they'd report, yeah, I applied here, I applied there. I'm guessing, thinking
I
that's
don't
part of
know.
it. Yeah.
And they're still doing the same thing, but probably the biggest, I have one restaurant under construction now. I'm working on a lease on another one, which is fun. Compliance, as you grow, being compliant with HR that's a growing pain a little
Yes,
bit.
it is.
And I'm not super crazy about the terms that the banks are giving me right now, if I may get that off my chest. I can understand the 2 points over prime. That they say it's 1 point over prime, but they juice you on 1 point at signing, so it's 2 points. That's fine. Jerome Powell can figure out whatever prime's going to be. That's way above my pay rate grade. But the 5-year terms is crippling. It'd be nice in 5 years, but I'm not a spring chicken. They're hitting us with the 5-year term now instead of whatever your lease is. You're being able to depreciate it over 10 years. So
Yep.
you're really not making, the bank's getting paid for the owners and everybody. You kind of have to wait on your money a little bit, but that's really it.
How's inflation hit you? And have you had to raise
Well,
prices much? Have you tried to maintain, if not increase your margins with
I
the
did it
highest labor
different.
costs ever? Tell me about that. My restaurant sold tons of fried foods, but what a hassle dealing with the fryer oil and cleaning hoods from all that grease. Restaurant Technologies handles everything end to end. They deliver, filter, monitor, collect, and recycle your waste cooking oil. Their AutoMist system reduces the fire risk with automated hood and flue cleaning, hassle-free. As a customer, you'll save 10 to 15% on insurance premiums and even get bonuses for new customer referrals. Go to rti-inc.com or call 866-399-3639 to get started. I know from my experience that growing your business can mean big-time logistical challenges, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Believe me, when I owned restaurants, this was a challenge for me. Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then, drivers from Uber's courier network pick them up at your place and deliver them right to your customer's door. Sounds simple, right? Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
Yeah, I did it different. So and I'm in Georgia, so we opened up first. Would open up, I think it was April, whatever the date was, we went. And me being naive and not political, I thought I was going to be all happy that I opened, and I put it all on social media and people got steamed. And I was like, well, man, I'm just trying to serve some oysters, dude. But we got to open. And what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious about how inflation has impacted your margins.
Inflation. It started going up, and I'm not going to work for free. Steaks were the first one. Tenderloins. I think we were at $38 for a steak. And I was like, man, I can't see people paying $55 for a steak.
Yeah,
and I was listening to
proposition.
Right. And I was listening to the radio. It says steaks are going to be a luxury item. The $100 steak will be normal. And then we were talking to some friends of mine who own some restaurants. What are we going to do? And I'm like, let's just crank them up. And I started raising my prices with this stuff. I can sit here and talk prices with you all day. At one point, like I'm a seafood guy, grouper was $13 a pound. And the next day it's 32.
Unreal. Oh my God. Almost triple. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And scallop. So I raised them. I raised the prices for quicker than my competition. Now I haven't increased prices in 2 years, almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. But as far as what I paid people, we opened back up in April and then May, and I do my incentive programs with my managers on a quarterly bonus. But I saw that it was hot. Like it was like, I'm like, okay, this is going to be, not only are we're going to be doing pretty well here, we want to whip everybody to a frenzy. So I'm like, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go monthly for the rest of the year. We're going monthly. And I'm like, we'll just pay out on the month. And so that got everybody all jazzed up. So I was sitting around after work one day, and all the managers and everybody get paid. And I have a cook named Oscar. And I said, man, I didn't think about Oscar. And he's been with me since day one, since 2007. I felt like that big. So I went up and I said, hey man, how much do you want to make? And he says, thanks. And I said a number, and he went higher. And it was a fair number. It seems ludicrous now, but
right.
I know people that work hourly for livings, and we're not asking for these. I don't mind. So I said, okay. And I said, who else needs raises? He goes, let me finish. I see you at the bar. So he wrote everything down. And he told me how much. And so we just went out and all of the chefs, not all the chefs, a few of the executive chefs, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make my percentage on my labor, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, watch. And it actually got a little lower. I swear. And I was like, I'm very proud of that. So
Yeah,
that was back in, so we opened back up in 21. So this is at the end of 21, 22. I
okay.
didn't raise prices in 23 and I haven't raised prices in 24, but I cranked them up pretty hot and heavy then because I'm like, I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't keep up with it. And then my competition, everybody was going market price this and whatever. And I was like, what are you going to do? And then king crab legs, because we were buying the Dutch Harbor stuff, the good stuff. When I was paying, I had a whole bunch of it. I locked in at $26 a pound. And so I said, that's crazy. That stuff's like 45, 50. It was up in the 60s at one point. So I took them off
Yeah, you
and I
have to.
said, hold up, wrong. So I'm sitting at the bar and this guy comes up. I had two different people say, hey, I got king crab at somewhere in Mississippi. One thing, I don't gamble over there. And the other one said they had them in Biloxi. And the other one said they had them at Trulux. And they told me the price. It was like 125 for a pound and a half or something. I'm like, okay, let me try it because I put snow crab on everything. People started paying it. Now I swear on all this holy. And so we put that on there and I was like, okay, but the prices are high. So then you have to say, okay, now the service and everything else, you got to double down on that because that's my biggest complaint is that one of them is the prices. And I understand that, but the price is the price. I'm making the same net income I did percentages I did before. And I don't see how anybody can ask me to make less, in my opinion.
Is your partner the chef in your operation?
Yeah, he is. He is. He decided he no longer wanted to be right after the pandemic, right when the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So he's busted his back up a few times and he's rich. I said, okay, that's no problem. So we hired an executive. We had a corporate executive chef. And so he's still a partner. And God willing, we'll be partners forever. And we have how we do our management fees and there's fringe benefits, everything had to be ironed out. But we have a corporate chef and he still helps me out and I talk to him every other day and he just no longer wanted to be in the grind.
Does that person, let me ask you, who's really watching the KPIs and the finances? Because you're a numbers guy, but whoever's in the kitchen obviously also needs to be a numbers guy. Does he cost out the menu regularly? Do you compare profitability within items, the spread difference, all that kind of stuff, and keep up with it so that you're maintaining, if not increasing margins and still offering the value to the guest?
What we do, I pretty much do most of that as far as the numbers go, because it's pretty simple. Like I said earlier, everyone's on an incentive program. So we have our food costs. You have your food costs, you got your wine costs, liquor costs, beer costs, total beverage, and your cost of goods sold. Labor cost percentage, health score, and I have a restaurant evaluations. All of those are numbers. You either make the number or you don't. Now we get our numbers. We just do sales. We do purchases divided by sales. We don't count inventory. We don't do anything because anybody can juice all that. We mess with that because over the course of it, like I said, we do over a quarter because over a quarter that's going to shake out. So we get our numbers every Tuesday and every Wednesday morning at your allotted time. We all have a meeting. We have a phone call and we go over all this percentages I just told you. And then we look at, in the kitchen, I look at average rates. Sometimes the average rate is going to be the average rate. I look at hours. I break it down into hours. So because the kitchen's the big one. So I look at how many hours we worked this week compared to how much the sales were, how many hours we worked last week compared to the sales, and how many hours we worked last year, same period compared to sales. And if there's some variance there, we discuss it and we go on. As far as the quality of the food, we have spec sheets on what you can and can't order from. Of course, sometimes it's not so much let's just use red snapper, for example. We had red snapper gate. Okay. I started seeing on the reviews, and reviews also are if you use those reviews, you go to reviews with an open mind. There's your secret shopper. I'm not paying somebody all that money. There's your secret shopper. I mean, kick Yelp out because anybody can put anything. But Google, you had to be there in an open table or Resi, you had to have checked in. I'm sure there could be some fraud there, but hey, if you're going to go that far into it, I'm not a detective. But the suppliers sometimes a sub out. So I have to manage the suppliers. And that's where I need help from my corporate chef, is for him to put the pressure on the suppliers to say, hey, you can't sub out genuine American. The price is the price. Let's lock in. So that's how I do it. It's pretty easy once you get it set up, but you have to have those meetings or your numbers have to come out on time. And that goes back to my CPA, getting those numbers on a consistent basis for me. And then we get the income statements and then we match all those up, but they're always right there.
Yeah, there's always that balance between using local purveyors and getting the quality versus the price without the economies
Yeah.
of scale of some of the big box places. But then if you
Right.
work with the big box places, chances are you can buy huge bulk in advance. They'll store it for you. You don't have to store it on site and you can lower your price that way. There's that balance you got to reach. But it seems to
Yeah.
me your quality is like your local fishmongers and right off the boat, and you're dealing with those types of people because you're so seafood heavy. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that is. Everyone will tell you wide variety and pristine quality because that's in our mission statement. And that's really what we go at. We talk numbers and you can have everything. And I'm like, okay. And I tell my guys, I'm like, all right, if this is blowing you out of the water on your food costs, we'll put it to the test, man. This isn't that hard. And if they're right, like I say, I love being wrong now. If they're right, but you just stay up on it. And but the local thing, that's not and I'm not dogging on that by any stretch of the imagination. We spend our time sourcing and hammering out and pulling our hair out on that center of the plate protein. 100%. Of course, we want good vegetables and where our air cover comes from. But for me to pay 3 times more for a carrot that comes from down the street, because we tried it once and it didn't work because no one cared. They care about
Agreed.
that.
Slate. Yep.
And we're not Charleston. We're in Atlanta you can get local stuff, but it's not like you're in South Carolina or some of these places or Northern California or Maine or wherever you may be, in my opinion. And it's just not really a hill I want to die on.
Totally get it. Absolutely.
Hope we don't sound like a greedy numbers guy when I say that, but
Let's talk about your team. What do you look for in either existing team or new hires? What do you expect them to bring to the table based on your reputation, the quality of your restaurants? And then we'll dive into training as well, your training philosophies. But what do you look for first? What do you want them to bring to your restaurant?
hospitality, be hospitable. I'm talking about GMs first or managers, because we're getting ready to expand and we're wanting to promote some people that are some number 2s or number 1s. The first thing that you have to do is you have to be hospitable. I want to eat because the incentive program that we have in place is pretty strong. My benefit package is very strong. And I want each person to own that restaurant and make it their own little thing. My CPA actually told me once, he says, Rich, you don't have this is years ago, and it insulted me. He says, you don't have a bunch of little riches running around. And I'm like, you know what? I don't. So let's go for it. So you have to be hospitable. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's not. And I'm going to tell you how I judge it. If I don't see your name in a review, or I don't get a phone call or a text from a regular, you work for me for 6 months, you'll never be a GM in my company because you're not owning it. You're not on the floor. I don't make people do paperwork. We do everything for you. I'm very clear and concise about what I want. These numbers aren't hard. You order right. We have everything all set up. It's not, and we have an accounting office that the company pays. You know what I mean? So you can stay off there. That's the first thing. The second thing is as far as the chefs go, and this goes to John, my partner, I call him Schwank, but Schwank and I's relationship is, of course, you have to be able to cook. Okay. And you have to have a passion for the business. We just don't want someone that just feels like this is what they are doing because they couldn't get through college or whatever the reason may be. You have to, but we don't want you
somewhere else.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But or somebody who got into selling for a big box or a big whoever, a food service, and decide they want to do that. And they're coming back. Sometimes that's a little tough. We want you to have some passion, but we don't want you so passionate where you want to be on whatever TV show all the time and taking pictures on Instagram. It's a fine line, man. But beyond that, you also have to be hospitable. That chef has to have good communication skills, and that chef has to be able to work with that general manager. And there cannot be a gap that the front of the house and the back of the house has to be seamless, or you're never going to work for me.
That's a challenge in a lot of places.
It is.
Because we often see the cooks on the line under the most difficult heat of the day conditions,
Right.
hot battle, the tickets are on the floor, and a server has a problem with a meal, whatever, and she is trying to tactfully bring it to their attention when the tickets are on the floor,
Right.
and yet you got to get this recook, and it's sometimes tensions get high, and you got
It
to
happens a
find that
lot, man.
balance.
I think John and I have set a pretty good example, and we've certainly had
Yes,
we've known each other since '94. It's a long time, man. So we've gotten into it pretty good bit, especially when I was a maitre d' and he was a sous chef way back when. But and then during the recessions too, that struggling on payroll. But it
definitely.
was never everything's always water on the bridge. And I go over this. I've been doing this a while and it works for me and hopefully it'll continue to work. But me as an owner, as a leader, I do have to play monkey in the middle a little bit. And fortunately, unfortunately, if I wasn't a restaurateur, I'd probably be a mediating attorney because I'm pretty good at mediating on things and seeing everybody's side, having sympathy and empathy for people, just from the way that I was raised from my mom and my dad and my grandparents. So I'll always tell them, like, look, sometimes front of house is stacked. Everyone's trained. Everybody's ready to go. We got a bunch of killers out on that floor. They know what they're doing. And you lose a cook in the back and they're on struggle street. Be understanding of that. Because sometimes we're gonna have a bunch of new people and they're gonna be stacked in the back. We can't ring orders in and bust a table or put bread on the table. And everybody needs to understand that this whole thing's cyclical. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's how I manage all that.
So Atlanta's a competitive restaurant town. It's a big city, right? Lots of
Mhm.
different restaurants, lots of great chefs and interesting concepts. What would you say your competitive advantage or advantages are? What are your hooks? What really draws people in? Your restaurant menu is your most important and effective marketing tool. Check out TerraSlate. TerraSlate offers waterproof, rip-proof, antimicrobial menus that are easy to clean and last. TerraSlate leads the industry, shipping menus to every state and over 100 countries with a super fast one-day turnaround and free overnight shipping. Try TerraSlate. Your team will love them. Go to terraslate.com. That's TerraSlate.com.
Good question. I'm an Atlanta boy for a while. Atlanta's fickle. Atlanta likes the home team. Atlanta likes the home team a lot. That's the first thing. The second is I know what I am. All my restaurants are timeless and original. It's timeless yet original. I know what I want to be. I think about it because I failed. I had a restaurant that closed because I couldn't explain what it was to anyone. And I'm like, man, I should just burn a whole bunch of money, and which is what happened. But we're timeless. We're original. We're not modern. We're not trendy. Um, I will stay up on the trends because that worries me sometimes that I'll get old. But I'm
Classic? I
not.
mean, timeless and classic go together.
They
That's not
do
old and tired. It's still progressive, yet it's authentic, and
right,
people know what to expect.
and that's it. I want people to know, especially when I decided I wanted to brand C&S, and I'm very proud of what we've done so far, getting that thing all moving in the same direction because that's hard. And so no, that timeless, original, classic, being a hometown guy. And when I say that it's wide variety and pristine, that's it. Like I will lose my mind. Like I love Pano Caritas. Okay. He owns Chops in Buckhead Life Restaurant. And when I was a young man, I got that job. I got the GM's job when I was 29. And he always used to talk to him all the time. And I remember he kept me in his office one time. And man, it seemed like hours over shrimp. And I said, this guy has lost his mind talking about shrimp. Right now, this week it's flounder because I can't find the flounder that I want. And I'm like, the flounder, and I'm driving everyone crazy because you have to have that. And like I said, it's back to the details of the center of the plate protein. And we don't, like we say it's red snapper, it's red snapper. And it's not mangrove or mutton or whatever okey doke that people want to pull. That's what and for the longest time, this original and timeless thing, especially when the recession happened, everybody went to a little bit more trendy and smaller place and everything like that. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to do black grouper and red snapper small place and make it $15? And I was doubting myself, but now we've been around 18 years and keep pushing along. Wish we had more restaurants than we have, but it's not easy, man. So that's the long answer to that.
What about your beverage program? Very profitable. Is it wine, heavy on wines? Is it classic cocktails, signature cocktails, that sort of thing?
That has changed. We used to be real heavy on wine. When we opened, I'm a wine guy. That's what I like. I like it all, but I like wine the most. And I'm pretty much Francophile. So we had a big European because matched up. We had a lot of white burgundies on there back when they were affordable. And we just had all these nice wines and we sold it. Then recession happens. And then that cocktail phase started. I was late. Actually, when we first opened, I borrowed a lot of ideas from Balthazar and Employees Only in New York, because those are some of my favorite places. And it was simply just fresh squeezed classic cocktails. And that worked. Then the recession happened. And then I just got sideways and took my eye off of it. Then we got back into it. Now we sell more liquor than wine. And you'd rather do that anyway, because your profitability is more. Beer's an accompaniment. We don't sell any beer in our restaurants. I tried. I had 12 taps on it. And I'm like, I'm going to sell these craft beers. And it was like, okay. But now it's more cocktails than wine, which really helps because that can bring your total beverage cost way down. And you can and now I didn't set those $14 prices. They were already in the market. Yeah. But what the fun thing about it is the quality. It used to be, back in the 90s, your well program was the cheapest I can get. And you just put rock gut in every drink and try to make your money like that. And now that it has to be quality product that goes into your cocktails, and you can't even have junky, which if you want to have some dignity, it's nice to have. And then it's a great source of pride for everyone. And I have some good bartenders that help me, my cocktail program.
Front of house, on the floor behind the bar, do you have suggestive selling that actively happens? Is there training on using your personality and product knowledge to sell to premium products, that sort of thing?
Yes, we have our training program. We call it your spiel, because we call it your spiel. Do you care for just suggestive words? Do you care for one of our classic cocktails, a local beer, or something from our wine list? And then you have your wine list. We have wines by the glass, and we have, I don't know how many wines we have on there. It's getting up there. My managers, 2 of them are about to pass their level 2 somms. And so we're all in it. And so they'll put that in their hands. We also have a fish case up front. So they'll guide them through the fish case. So you can look at it like you're in a fish butcher's.
I like that.
So that's in the spiel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's in the spiel. And water is a big one. If you like to sell water, the water is always a good one because water's free. And then now it's $9, $10. We sell Hilden, which has always been Schwank and I's favorite when we were tasting. But it was the water for the Ritz-Carlton. The Queen drank it. And then I was watching a documentary on Rupert Murdoch. He's out on one of his yachts. And guess what he's drinking? He's drinking Hilden. So I went in through a fit. If I see another bottle of X, Y, or Z, if it's good enough for the Queen, if it's good enough for the Ritz, if it's good enough for Rupert Murdoch, we're going to sell it. If it's not any, that's as high ends as it gets, baby. That's what we do right now. And we have daily specials that we push every day to keep everything the same.
Specials? Yeah,
one-offs. That works okay. I could tighten that up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Some of them are a little, with the economy being where it is right now, selling sea bass Oscar for whatever I sell it for. It's probably, we might want to back off on that a little bit. But the problem is if you're training these servers to go out there, be good salespeople, be killers, and to really read people, and we're there to sell. But there's a fine line between being greedy and being, that's the old story.
Well, if you have product and restaurant knowledge and you literally are able to present certain things as these are very popular items, these are my favorites, you've got to try this, and use your personality behind it. It's acting, basically. This is show business.
Yes.
It's acting. And people are going to appreciate a knowledgeable person making a suggestion versus just being an order taker. So it increases the check, it elevates the guest service experience. And all we're doing is informing people of what we think or believe they will enjoy and appreciate.
And if you buy what you think is quality product, caviar games is very subjective because Lord knows who you're getting from. So we get it from this place called Star Caviar. It's a daughter and father team that have been around since the 90s. Like, I guarantee it's coming from here. I guarantee it's coming from here because I was getting my caviar. And I'm like, yo, man, this is not what I told you I wanted. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Now, the salesperson don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm like, so I threw a fit and I was like, and I met this girl. She was so passionate about what she was talking about. And I'm like, you're selling all my caviar. So I'm like, I don't care. Just the price is just a little high. I don't care. You're doing it. Just make sure you use really good Alaskan king crab legs instead of something that comes from China. This tastes like you're eating sodium. Like, it's pretty easy. All we gotta try to do is not burn it and we're good.
How about marketing? What works? Do you have to spend much on marketing? Is it
You let me know.
online
I don't
reviews?
know.
Is it
I don't know. I love my PR team. I love Green Olive Media. I use them a lot. I don't spend a lot on print ad because it's being a numbers guy. I can't get my ROI on it.
there you go. You're hitting the key right now. If it's not trackable and if you can't tell if it's delivering
I
an
don't
ROI, you're
know.
wasting your money.
I think so. It's in print. We'll do some social media. We have some social media, and I like it.
How about
But really,
influencers like hotel concierges and Uber drivers and that sort of thing?
if you can hook one or two, you're good. It's not like the old days. If you can get a van driver from the hotels, and we're working on it. We've got a
There you
few,
go.
and there's just because I'm from the old school because I worked in Buckhead and there were like hotels all around. We would go around and Maggie LaCo's from Bernadette because that's just a whole nother
Mhm.
situation up there in the theater district. But she's gonna find you like the concierge never pay. Don't let them pay. Make sure they bring them in. They come in and they eat. You just watch and make sure people don't take advantage. And so that really worked. So but a lot of that depends on the managers. The managers got to have that kind of go get it kind of thing. But that works better than anything. Online reviews, responding to reviews. We have a negative review, responding to a review. A lot of the little, if you can get a blurb in the paper or something like that over on Oyster Day or something like that's really what I do. But as far as paying for advertisement, yeah,
What about cross promotion of your properties? Do you have any incentives for? We used to have a program. I used to call it the Great Dining Passport. And the way it worked was if you were to go to several of our restaurants within 1 month's time, come back in, show us 3 guest checks for a certain amount, we'd give you a gift card to come back to any of the restaurants for another visit. That was pretty
I
popular.
don't do that. That sounds that it's never really crossed, but all of my restaurants are the same.
Okay.
They're all the same. I don't know.
So
Maybe
you're saying the menus and the concepts, everything is the same. They're just different locations around
they're
town.
just different locations. It's like going to eat at a McDonald's. I
Gotcha.
have one up here. I have one in Roswell, which is in the suburbs of Atlanta,
Yep.
and it's a casual place. It's the second place we opened because we were broke, and it was time to open a restaurant, so we had to go on the streets and raise money like that. But it's a lot. It's a lot of fun, but it's so far removed from what we do in there. People know it, but I don't know. We'll see. When we get the steakhouse rolling, maybe that'll do something, and that'll be probably into next year. Maybe.
You're opening a steakhouse, or that's on the plan?
Yeah. We are finalizing the lease right now. We've been working on that forever. How long it's been.
Fantastic. That's good.
Yeah, so we'll see once that gets going on. The plan is to, if that kicks, and I think it probably should, is to scale the C&S because I'm looking at some properties outside of state because I don't know how many more of these are going to be viable in Atlanta. This next one we're going to open is a big one. I think it's going to be, dude, it's in a really good location. So I'll know within the first couple months if it's going to be the new prototype. And if it is, I've got my eyes circled on a couple of places. We're just going to bam and go for it while we're doing the steakhouse. If I don't.
Fantastic. What's a typical day like for you, Rich? What's your role day to day in C&S?
Not as well. I'm up early. 4:30, 5:30 early, and I hit the gym and do that. And then I check all my end of the night emails, which all the managers send me, breaking down all the calls, read a synopsis of the night, just make sure everybody's engaged, make sure everything's perfect. Percentages are on there, go over that. The food complaints, anything that was sent back, I guess do that. Then I'll read reviews. After I do that, I go to the gym for a little bit and then I come home. And depending on whether I have meetings, I normally will have a meeting or two and I don't have an office anymore. I work out of my home because I don't like that overhead because it's just any too many profits.
Right.
So I'll get those out of the way, and then I'll go and I'll work lunch normally and have meetings and everything. And then normally I don't work as many dinners as I used to. I have a daughter. I have general managers that are highly incentivized. I'll work when we open a place. I'll work to make sure that everything's good. If I have a big VIP, like I have one tonight, I'm going to go in and sit and see somebody. I'll come in and say hi. But for me to go in and expedite, and I just gonna make matters worse. That's still of value, but it's my theory. And it took me a long time to be okay with this. And this is the newfangled me, is to be okay with not being in there 17, 18 hours a day, because there's diminishing returns.
Absolutely.
And I believe that. And I tell my general managers, and I'm like, hey man, when you take some time off, take a vacation, once you're working over 50, 55 hours a week, they're okay. Now, if they have to work a stretch because of whatever, then, hey, man, if you got to work, if it's an opening and it's not going right because we're in an unorganized mess, then we're all in it together. So if you've got to work 3 weeks in a row without a day off, hey,
whatever
that's
it takes.
just whatever it takes. So that's my role.
Awesome.
I spend a lot of time with compliance and a lot of time right now, like banks and opening these places and going checking on construction. What my plan is, my banker is just going to be real mad at me, but my plan is, he told me I could do one a year. And so I'm doing one a year, but I'm ready to crank that thing up after this one to 2. So if I can do 2 a year, I have the people in place to do this. And I think it's going to be, it's time for us to start financing some of these things on our own, which is not going to be a problem. We do pretty well. We keep our cash. We're a very disciplined company, which I'm proud of that. And I learned that from Aggie Lacoste, because she was a tough, but I'm like, she's got a house in Mystique next to Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger
Nice.
comes in.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Comes
and I
up
was
for
like,
drinks in the afternoon.
oh, he's real nice. I used to have to guard him from people, everything. He's just a super nice guy, man. And I was like, I want to be like her. Yeah, me too. He's the best. And that's how I did it. I just worked at these really nice places and watched people who I'm like, man, I like what they're doing. How do I do it? Let's just do what they're doing. And then some of the stuff he didn't like, and then see what happens. Try not to go broke in the meantime.
It's been great talking to you, Rich. I really enjoyed
nice talking
conversation. You're an operator's operator.
I try my best. Alrighty.
I wish you the best of success, not only with your current restaurants, but with your future growth plans. Looks like you're doing great things for the industry. You're all about hospitality, and that's what it's all.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking restaurants with you.
My pleasure, Rich. Thank you.
Okay,
that was the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Can't wait to see you all in the next episode. Stay tuned. Stay well. Thanks to our sponsors this week. Restaurant Equippers has served independent food service operators nearly 60 years. They have low everyday prices and huge warehouse stores in Ohio, Michigan, and New Jersey. Shop for your restaurant equipment at equippers.com or call 800-235-3325. Their experienced specialists are standing by with thousands of name brand products available for immediate store pickup or shipment. Restaurant Equippers is a family-owned business just like yours. Give them a call for all your equipment and supply needs, or visit them at equippers.com.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.